The Voge SR450X that's covered 10,000 kilometers. Engine characteristics. This is blogger Chong's bike. Let's check the transmission case filter area. Chong's fans all know this. He doesn't ride gently. And his speed isn't low either. He often goes on long motorcycle trips. As for the transmission cover, this bearing is all covered in grime. Let's take a look at the belt. This is a Guangdong-made double-sided belt. Looking at it like this, there's no problem. There's definitely dust inside the transmission case. The clutch area is also pretty dirty. That's completely normal. After all, Chong has ridden over 10,000 kilometers. If the transmission was spotless when opened up, everyone would definitely say the mileage was faked. Let's check the wear on the front drive pulley. There's no obvious stepped wear. From the wear marks on this part, you can actually tell Chong's riding habits. The obvious wear is on the inner and outer sides here, which shows he accelerates pretty hard off the line and rides at fairly high speeds. Let's look at the back side. There's quite a lot of dust here too. And that's just on the clutch. Let's take a look at this part. Here, everyone was asking whether these 10,000 plus km were real or not. Just look at how much dust there is. First, it shows he wasn't deliberately riding gently. Second, it shows that these 10,000 kilometers are genuine. Feeling it by hand, this part is still flat. The wear marks are definitely noticeable, according to what the blogger told us. He also rode a lot on unpaved roads, so the throttle would have been used pretty aggressively. All of this is from the belt. These bits worn off from the friction pads. So how should you maintain the transmission? If you ride aggressively, do it a bit earlier. If you don't ride aggressively, then you can clean it once every 10,000 to 20,000 kilometers. Now let's look at the roller weights. These roller weights are actually pretty wear resistant, because the whole teardown was live streamed. A lot of riders saw it happen live. These roller weights are still perfectly round. There's no section that's been worn flat yet. Let me rotate it around so you can all see. Riders of other models will know. After a certain mileage, the roller weights will get worn flat on one side at a certain spot. But the material used for these roller weights is really good. After 10,000 kilometers they've still kept their original shape. Barely anywhere at all. Let's check the crankshaft oil seal. No signs of oil leakage either. The whole inside is dry. There really is a lot of dust. This was a rare opportunity. Chong happened to pass by my place, and the two of us talked about whether to create some buzz. So we decided, why not tear down the engine? That way we'd both have content. He even posted a video asking for opinions. While he was still collecting opinions, I'd already pulled his engine out, so there was no room for him to back out. Okay, the Magneto cover is off. Let's take a look inside, still very clean. No signs of the coils being scorched either. The coils all look completely normal. Now let's take a look at the comments section. Someone's bound to say, tearing down at 10,000 kilometers isn't enough. You should tear it down at 100,000 kilometers. This bike has only been out for a few months, so reaching 10,000 kilometers already is quite rare. 10,000 km still has real reference value. If certain parts already show we're at just 10,000 kilometers, how many more kilometers do you think it'll last? Right? So it does have reference value. Okay, let's look at the camshaft retainer cap. You can barely see anywhere on the camshaft's contact surface. Now let's take the camshaft off. The surface is also very smooth. Forget about wear. Even the usage marks are extremely light. Basically after these 10,000 kilometers, this steel lobe shows no wear marks at all. Only extremely light usage marks. Look at this valve lifter. You can't even tell it's been used for long. Now let's look at the cylinder. The Voge SR450V uses an electroplated ceramic cylinder liner. Look how beautiful this cylinder surface is. Don't even hope to find wear on it. The honing crosshatch pattern is clearly visible. The cylinder surface is shiny bright. Can you all see any usage marks? Pretty hard to spot, right? So with wear this minimal after 10,000 kilometers. And it wasn't gentle riding either. Do you think this engine's internals can hold up? Now let's take a look at the piston. Let's check the coating on this piston. It uses a cast piston. This coating has barely changed at all. See for yourselves, right? Just extremely light usage marks all around. Is there anything else to check on this piston? Pretty clear to see, isn't it? The carbon buildup is normal. Even your own bike after a few thousand km would have this much carbon buildup too. From what we've seen so far, the wear after 10,000 kilometers is way below what you'd expect. Let's look at the one-way clutch. Again, just usage marks, no actual wear. Since you've watched this far, if you like the video, give it a like. Fellow enthusiasts, this is just for reference. Don't interrupt him, okay? The oil pump chain is a toothed chain. Made by DRD. This is used pretty rarely. And there's no sign of it having stretched. The timing chain also hasn't stretched. The timing chain brand is also DRD. This is the same as the components used on my previous bike's engine. So don't worry about whether it's genuine or not. Its oil pump is a dual pump type, which is essentially like having two oil pumps. Alright, let's separate the case and take a look at the crankshaft and balance shaft. The inside of the case is also very clean, no burrs. The internal surfaces are also quite smooth. Let's look at the crankshaft, also normal. No wear. Let's check out the balance shaft. The balance shaft. I haven't mentioned before that it's forged. The balance shaft has no issues at all. It has a staggered gear tooth structure. Now let's look at the crankshaft. The crankshaft is also completely normal. Take a look at its contact surface with the bearing shell. It's also extremely smooth. There aren't even any usage marks. Next, let's look at the connecting rod bearing on cylinder 1. Looking at this, it's also just normal usage marks. Let me explain why this shot looks a bit off angle. Because Chong was live streaming at the time, we tore down this bearing shell live the whole way through. We had to angle it toward his camera. Let's check the reflection on the bearing shell, which shows the surface is very smooth. Bearing shells tend to show usage marks a bit more clearly. Any engine with bearing shells will be like this. The bearing shell surface has an extra coating, which is fairly soft, which means once you install the engine, even after starting it for just a little while, the marks on it will already be quite visible. For this bearing shell, we mainly look at the reflectiveness. Some bearing shells have a zinc alloy coating. Some have a lead coating. They're all quite soft. You can even rub it off with your finger after a while. Which is why the first 100 kilometers break-in period is especially important. If your bike uses bearing shells, which is basically true for all big displacement bikes, you really need to pay attention during the first 100 kilometers break-in. Take a look at this connecting rod bearing too, also shiny bright. You really can't tell it's been used at all. Now let's take apart the connecting rod on cylinder 2. Okay, take a look everyone. The reflection is completely normal, which shows it's also smooth. The marks on it are also just normal usage marks. That's the teardown done. But we can't just let Chong fly home without his bike. We still need to put his engine back together. As for the wear condition of this engine, you should already understand it after watching the video, so I won't bother summarizing. The wear is really minimal. Barely visible at all. And keep in mind this bike did 10,000 kilometers of touring. And the riding was fairly aggressive too. Especially this cylinder. Take a look everyone. Where are the usage marks? There's only normal carbon buildup. Alright, let's start reassembling. Apply assembly lube to the bearing shells. Then install the crankshaft. The teardown process was live streamed the whole way through. And I also live streamed part of the reassembly process. And this engine case was cleaned with an ultrasonic cleaner, though it wasn't really dirty to begin with. Let's live stream putting this engine together. Some fans said, give some precise guidance. And make sure Chong can't even get out of Lianyungang. Or have it break down halfway through his ride. I can't bring myself to do that. Or he'd definitely beat me up. The prank I had in mind for him, I dropped it. That way. Does Chong count as having shown his face in my video? Take a look at the top right corner, everyone. Just from this hairstyle you can instantly tell it's a person, right? Look, after he washed up. His bald spot is even shinier now. Turns out there's no wear marks. There's really no usage marks at all. Can't see any. These past few years Lonson has been improving incredibly fast. Especially their production line, which is very advanced. I've filmed a factory tour video of Lonson before. You can go check it out. Lonson's large displacement engine platforms are quite extensive too, and they're all built to be very reliable. Look at Lonson's 500 cubic centimeters engine. You'll hardly find repair shops that ever need to touch it. And also their inline 4 500 and 660, 800, and so on. You almost never see them break down. And this engine here is surely the same. The wear amount after these 10,000 kilometers. You've all seen it for yourselves. Alright, let's lift the engine back in. Add the coolant. The coolant capacity is 1.3 liters. Then add the engine oil. If I forgot to add the oil, that'd be a real problem. He'd come find me halfway through his trip to beat me up. The oil we're using is the unbeatable factory original oil. This is specially formulated for the SR series. It's fully synthetic. And it's manufactured by Shell. This oil stability is also very good. So the engine's been torn down, and now it's back together. Let's start the bike so you can all hear how it sounds. Listen to it first, then we'll rev it. The sound still feels really smooth. No rattling noise. You can put on headphones to listen. Revving it up now. And finally, confirmation from Chong himself, letting me know this bike can hit a top speed of 161 km/h.